Here we are, doing this again. It's been quite a while, hasn't it? But I've realized there's probably a character I do need to cover. And that character is Virus 404. These creators really like putting 404 in their character names. We have Error 404, OP God 404, and now Virus 404. I wonder what's up with that. Well, in this video, hopefully we'll find out. Welcome back to True Boundless God Flawless. Starting off, wow, they actually managed to have this ability not apply to beings without code. Gold star for understanding a basic premise of Undertale multiverse cosmology. But at the same time, what about the timeline where he didn't destroy the universe? And of course, what's the special deal with Error 404 that makes him immune to it? And it's unknown. I mean this from a world building perspective. Why include this random caveat to the ability? And you blew it. No more gold star for you. Like, why do AUs do this? Why do they do this? Plonk this guy in Underside and see if he can change the base codes. What base codes? Also, why is the one thing that's a reflection of a base Sans ability treated as the and even most powerful or crazy ability that's given here? And really the overall nature of this list seems really weird. First of all, now we finally have a non-code based ability, but the way it's described is really weird, as if this is like an actual thing that exists in universe and can be listed out like this, and is like being studied by abilityologists or whatever. Which, like, you really need to rethink your entire AU if that's how you're treating abilities. Also, why is this idea such a weirdly common cosmological thing in general? Our universe definitely doesn't have a balance, at least not in the way that's being described here. And also, what about the timeline where he doesn't do that? And of course he chooses to follow this up with another random list of abilities, as if we'll understand what any of those mean. Okay, so first of all for this one, again, what's with these random caveats we're seeing? It doesn't really look like there's some sort of underlying metaphysics that would cause these. And of course we can't forget about the phrase, this ability allows, which suggests that, like the other one, this ability is somehow something that literally exists as an interactable object in universe, rather than just an abstract description of a capability. So what the hell is up with this ability? It says it's code-based, but then it says that for the case where it's not code-based, there's a non-code-based version, which, like, what? It just doesn't really make sense to me, and you can see why on the screen. Like, it's called a code-based ability, so why have this, like, version of it that, I don't know. Also, the ability says this, but I'm not sure the person writing this actually knows how file structures work. When I write code-based beings, such as my codlings, I always try to make sure there's an explicitly defined file structure for them, which I can reference if needed. Okay, so I understand what this ability is saying, and I think it's a cool ability to have, although the weird Error 404 exceptions are bad, and there's also this weird caveat, which is consistent with neither what we know about the ability, nor what it literally says he uses the ability for, so... But really, the issue with this is that the description is really just really long-winded. Like, here's literally the same ability which I've rewritten in, like, one sentence. In fact, I sort of want to start providing these rewrites for all the different abilities I look at, because I realize that mindlessly hating on everything isn't just going to be that valuable. So that's what you've been seeing flashing by just now. And oh yeah, you'll start seeing these OG tags next to the original Virus 404 ability, so let you know that they're not my rewrites. Anyway, my main complaint here is the additional Error 404 exceptions. Like, why is Error 404 randomly exempt from all of these abilities? I don't get it. Anyway, I stripped out the reference to the previous ability since it's obvious that there are more use cases than that, and of course got rid of the Error 404 thing. This is oddly specific. I get they're going for the virus theming, but also there's the this ability allows, and like, it's somehow both very specific and very vague at the same time. Anyway, for my rewrite, I just branched out the two explicit applications described here into their own abilities. The main thing I have to complain about here again is the insistence on adding exceptions for Error 404, which, like, I don't get. It's one of the main things I removed in my rewrites, as you can see here. So my main question here is, like, why should Virus 404 be able to die in the first place? I also take issue with the character being called a Sans, but that's beside the point. And aside from the timeline where this doesn't happen, why should he have to go through all this song and dance of destroying an AU to resurrect? Many characters at this level just resurrect normally. For my rewrite, I just decided to make him unkillable because for some reason normal AU writers are too cowardly to do this, and I have some trouble actually understanding why that's the case. He already has numerous other ways to destroy an AU anyway, so I don't think adding another is necessary. And yes, the beyond/irrelevant stuff that isn't actually how any universe works at all. Plus, it's poorly defined what systems in a universe are magic and what are just normal physics. So for the rewrite, I decided to just embrace that and expand the ability to reference physics as a whole. So my main complaint here is the weird Beyonder language being used to describe all this, as well as the name Deus Ex Machina, which has basically nothing to do with the ability. This is what I replaced it with. It's basically the same thing, but with less of the problems I just mentioned. And it's written in a way where this ability could just as easily be applied to just some powerful superhero or something, which is a good thing. This ability is an interesting one, as it's something that's covered by my rewrite, but not by any of the original abilities up to this point. And what's weird is I don't really have any complaints about this one. It's just an ability that allows him to survive at 1 HP. Constant totem of undying, I guess. So since this is already covered by my rewrite, it'll just be merged into the existing ability. So this is already kind of covered by existing stuff, so it's in the same awkward state as the previous ability. But also, what the heck does deity rank mean? What does minor beings? Again, rewrite is merged with an existing ability. Now this is a big annoying one. Let's trim out all the nonsense. There we go. First of all, what's a minor character? Second of all, this is another ability that I'm going to completely replace just because it seems so unnecessarily elaborate. And of course, do I really even need to say it? Come on! This is another ability I'm splitting out into two different ones because I'd like to talk about an ability I call polysomatism. It's basically what it's saying here. A person who's polysomatic can easily use, access, or often have available to them a bunch of different bodies at once. It isn't bound to any one particular body. And this, like being unkillable, is for whatever reason extremely rare in power scaling. And it really shouldn't be, because it's really as fundamental as the basic superpowers. It is a similarly natural ability for a being to have based on its nature, rather than the crazy stuff we usually see in power lists. This ability is fun because I don't even know how to rewrite it. It just seems like an oddly specific and, again, oddly vague thing. Being similar who can create things. What the heck does that mean? What does non-living mean? I just don't really have a rewrite for this. If I were making the character, I'd just remove it. But also, like, I have a couple things to bring up. What are these creation-based characters even to begin with? Like, I know what Ink Sans is, it's just, why is there a concept of a creator who's just these random characters? And on a related note, why are all the overpowered characters we've been looking at so weirdly edgy and destructive? Can't you at least have some powerful good guys for once? Where's my procreation zone? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's make that the rewrite, just to demonstrate a point. This ability, by the way, is a very overly convoluted way of saying that Virus 404 is an outcode, which is something we totally didn't already know before. The rewrite is just merged with a pre-existing ability again. And oh forking boy, here is the forking error 404 king exceptions. Why does this character just have some absolute omega weakness to Error 404? What happened here? Anyway, this is the rewrite. It just generalizes the ability to work with polysomatism and also removes the Error 404 thing because yes, who the hell is fighting this dude with Solar Flare? Who the hell is fighting this dude at all? Is fighting really the only context in which people can come up with these power sets? Other than that, this ability is rather reasonable. I'd just rewrite it to make it more concise. And also work better with polysomatism. The main issue with this ability is weird assumptions of some things being diegetic, as well as the weird limitless descriptor thing. Oh look, now my character can't be affected by Virus 404's powers. And also, let's go back to Ultria for a bit. Why do we never see characters like this who just have the base abilities of their species and nothing else? It just seems like such a strange thing to exclude, given that's probably the most common type of character in fiction. Here's the rewrite, by the way. Nothing too special. Next ability, and I guess this does turn out to be a Sans, or at least a skeleton, because there are bone attacks here. Anyway, I'll be holding off on the rewrite for now, because the rewrite for this will be hold on with the next two abilities, so I started not explicitly mentioning these code-based things and just silently removing them in the rewrites, but I thought I'd bring it up here just to clarify that that's what I'm doing. The next ability in this big rewrite bundle is this one. First of all, 23 milliseconds is a time, not a speed. And second of all, what's an antivirus? For example, if I do say this, is Ultria now suddenly more vulnerable to Virus 404's attacks? And this is despite Ultria being the same character regardless. And then the final ability in this trio is Absolute Telekinesis, where both what's an absolute level or an absolute scale, and also why is there the random caveat again? Doesn't seem so absolute now, does it? And now we can see why I wanted to rewrite all these abilities together. They're all extensions of Sans' basic abilities, meaning it sort of felt out of place to not do them all together. especially since I combined the two types of bone attacks into a single bone attack that did both. Now our next ability, which is one of the final abilities attached to the base form of Virus 404, is called the Mercy Blaster. Now why might this be called the Mercy Blaster, one might wonder? Has the creator of this character finally decided to add some positive stuff to the character's ability list? No, of course not, duh, are you stupid? Everyone knows that Mercy stands for Amalgamation Entity Rearranger Creation Yielder. This is the Mercy Blaster ability, which is probably the main ability of Virus 404, if such a thing can even be considered reasonable. I've trimmed it down rather heavily, but it still barely fits on my page. And boy, is there a lot to unpack here. First of all, Malgamite. Wow, what an awesome original name! And if not that, what a word that totally exists in the English language! Overall, Amalgamites just seem to be a very edgy form of amalgamate with some additional melting effects and a weird focus on pain in their descriptions, and yet at the same time it doesn't explicitly lay out what happens to normal amalgamates. Here's my rewrite. I cut down the ability considerably while still keeping the key aspects of it, and I also made it not a blaster for intuition purposes, as well as getting rid of the weird Mercy acronym. But just because we're done with the Mercy Blaster doesn't mean we're done with Virus 404. Indeed, we have this ability to cover. First of all, I don't know if the name is meant to be RIP, like rest in peace, or if it's meant to be RIP, like the rip in space-time it causes, but spelled with periods to make it edgy. And holy hell, is this a nightmare of the code-based stuff that the ability claims applies to all universes. And I can also see some similarities to Era 404 with the multiple stages of a blaster attack. My version of the blaster just strips out a lot of that oddly specific detail. This next ability is just loads of baloney. I'm not even gonna rewrite it. It's just, it like retcons the universe so that anyone it hits was killable and then kills them, and removes any possibility of reincarnate. Why? That feels like something straight out of Infinity Code, not this guy who's, I guess, vaguely related to Infinity Code, but like, here's my rewrite. So, this ability. It's almost as bad as the previous one, but at least I can glean something from it. At first I thought this was more of the weird Prison of Non-Existence stuff from Infinity Code, but as it turns out, it's just a rather normal yet overly destructive ability. As such, it can be replicated pretty faithfully, though without the weird retcon shenanigans, into my rewrite. Sorta like this. This is a weird sort of... There's been a lot of weird ability tier stuff and like ability category stuff that's like some jargon going on in the background. I haven't mentioned it up to this point. You can even see it in the previous ability with the Omega non-existent stuff. But here it is, right here. And again, additional random caveats to make the character more balanced. Look, you don't need to balance an overpowered character. The rewrite here is pretty much as expected. This is a unique case of an ability that's perfectly fine. It explicitly specifies exactly what context it's allowed in, doesn't make any weird jumps, and like, I don't even need to change it at all for the rewrite, as you can see here. Same goes for this one, although it merges with some existing rewritten abilities, most notably these ones. And also similarly to this ability, wow, the authors are really on a good streak here. Let's see if it continues. Yes and no. Malformed, blasphemous, chaotic, all of those are necessarily according to Virus 404's personal preference. So why doesn't this ability just explicitly say that? So here's my rewrite. Boils the ability really just down to its essentials. And it adds in links to some of the other abilities he has, which is nice. Now, that's the last ability on Virus 404's base form, but he does have one transformation that doesn't actually require another person to be involved in. The Overkill form. The problem with this I have is the same as the problem I have with most other transformations, which is that this has nothing saying it can't just be the form he stays in all the time. The whole idea of characters having a more powerful form that they only switch to in special cases, but that doesn't seem to have any apparent drawbacks to staying in it, is an invention of the power scaling community that doesn't really make sense when you actually think about it. So what I've done here is I've actually recontextualized this so that we were actually talking about the Overkill form the whole time, and now the normal form is the transformation. The roles have been reversed. Of course, at the most extreme, the answer would be to remove the entire transformation section, but this works as well, and it is rather interesting, looking from the perspective of the original character. And you know, that about covers it! All the other transformations involve characters that are not, in fact, Virus 404, so they don't count for this video. And so that means we're done. So, goodbye!